Okay, let's dive deep. We've got this stack of sources from you, our listener, taking us into some really extraordinary territory.
Definitely. We're looking at the alleged extraterrestrial contacts of Edward Billy Meier.
Yeah, and not just generally, but specifically focusing on the contact notes described in the material you sent.
Exactly. So our mission here is to really unpack these notes,
Mm.
pull out the key insights, the surprising bits, the core claims.
And just get a handle on the picture they paint, right?
No.
Straight from the material provided.
Think of it as, a shortcut through these pretty unique documents.
And the main source we're drawing from, it's excerpts from Wendelle C. Stevens' message from the Pleiades, Volume 4.
Right, which apparently compiles a whole lot of these contact notes. Quite a volume.
So setting the stage, as the notes describe it, these contacts supposedly kicked off January 28, 1975.
Yeah, with an extraterrestrial team, and Billy Meier is the central figure.
And the notes themselves, how did they come about, according to the source?
Well, it says Meier basically wrote down what he remembered soon after the encounters happened.
Okay.
And then these notes were witnessed, dated by someone else, and initially screened over in Switzerland.
The material also flags some important points about why it's being shared, doesn't it? With caveats.
It does. It mentions the original paragraph numbering was kept, for research purposes, and that some sensitive stuff couldn't be released.
And crucially,
it states that the people involved back in Switzerland, they feel they have their own proof. They don't feel obligated to prove anything to outsiders.
citing threats, harassment, that sort of thing.
Right. So this material is basically presented for your information. You decide if you buy it or not.
It also gives us context on the compiler, Wendelle Stevens. He apparently stopped his active investigation in '82.
Yeah, when Sam Jossi's team, as he called them, left, he figured this whole thing would play out over a really long time.
And he had, 1,800 pages of these notes?
Apparently so. And the source mentions he had complaints about the English version, potential false translations, mistakes,
Okay.
stressing the release was for researchers to judge for themselves. The original notes, it says, were really just for the Swiss group's own understanding. Not much more was meant to be released.
Now, before these 75 contacts, the source talks about Meier having, a lifetime of preparation.
Yeah, it claims he was conditioned by a whole other ET group, from a different universe even.
The DIL universe, what's the description there?
Described as existing in equal but opposite polarity to ours, kind of balancing and sustaining our universe.
Wow.
And the DALs supposedly discovered the Pleiadians, who are described as, surprisingly human-like.
And his early life, as the notes detail it, it's quite something.
Oh, absolutely. Living with Bedouins, desert caravans, captured by pirates, slave labor.
Put ashore in Turkey, studying philosophy in India.
Nearly a year at an ashram.
Yeah.
It's all presented as laying the groundwork,
Okay, let's get into the core stuff, the encounters, the phenomena, the tech described.
Right. So early on, there's mention of photographic evidence.
This is even before 75.
Way back. Meier supposedly took pictures of alien spacecraft in India. The source claims he gave the film roll to a reporter.
And 2 photos ended up on the front page of a New Delhi paper.
That's the claim. And Stevens apparently got copies of some of these older photos early in his investigation.
Beyond photos, though, the notes talk about some really strange physical events.
Oh, yeah. There's statement 1406. It describes this rapid disappearance and reappearance.
Where Meier covered a distance that should have taken, over half an hour?
In less than 15 minutes. And that's even with one arm, as the source notes.
And associated with that, someone else, Herbert, heard something weird.
Yeah, the unmistakable sound of a steamship. High up in the sky, right where Billy had vanished.
A steamship. Okay, that's unexpected.
Definitely adds to the mystery. The notes also mention this, felt supersonic stroke.
Making a house tremble, things rattling.
Right. And later, Quetzal, another claimed contact, supposedly confirms this happened, says they experienced it too, and found Meier's term for it, supersonic stroke. Interesting.
Then there's the beam pistol incident. This one sounds quite controversial.
It is. The setup, according to the notes, was using this pistol as a kind of demonstration or maybe a reminder of ancient tech.
And Meier asked to take pictures?
Yep. Sem Jossi supposedly agreed, just not too close. Somebody, Melina, might have been holding it or identified it.
And Stevens, the compiler, had doubts about these photos initially.
He did, about this ancient weapon. But the source says Meier then took him to the actual site, Preck Nature Preserve.
Okay, and what did they find there? This is where the source offers details as potential evidence, right?
Exactly. Meier showed Stevens these seared lines on plants and on a tree limb like 60 feet up.
And the points made were?
Well, the searing was narrow, sudden, not like a blowtorch that would make sap bubble out.
Uh-huh.
The difficulty for a one-armed man to get equipment that high up a tree.
Right.
And the trees were apparently too close together for a vehicle, like a crane, to get in without obviously clearing a path. These are the details presented to argue against it being a simple hoax.
Okay. Moving from that specific incident to the beamships, the described disks, they had issues.
Apparently, they developed core stabilizers because Meier's strange jokes.
Which the source doesn't really explain.
No, not in detail here, but these jokes could supposedly make the disks veer off course. A collision risk.
And some Jesse actually crashed one.
Into a tree, yeah. Broke the top clean off during a demonstration.
But not just an accident, there was a reason given.
According to the source, yes. It was linked to Meier spotting this abnormally large insect, 14 centimeters, called a god worshipper, near that same tree weeks before.
And they found it using an area analyzer.
That's the claim. Bizarre detail.
There's also a near miss with the plane mentioned.
Yeah, supposedly flew right near a ship, but the pilot couldn't see them. Some kind of protection belt was active.
And the ship would have moved automatically anyway.
Sensors would have handled it, yeah. And another incident, Semjase hit an animal.
Oh.
She apparently regretted it, wasn't paying enough attention, noted their new ship drives didn't emit the radiation that usually scares animals off.
And Meier suggested building something to generate that radiation.
He did. Interesting little interaction there.
What other tech gets mentioned?
Well, there's this advanced infrared technique, Minara Shield it's called on the notes.
Making things visible in odd ways, like a tractor in a film.
Yeah, showing all its specific features, that kind of thing.
And locations. They talk about specific spots on Earth.
These facet crossings. The center where the group was, Madagascar, Bermuda Triangle, the Japanese Devil's Sea.
Cosmic radiation hits there.
Yeah, but the notes downplay it. Say it only accounts for maybe 2-3% of the weird stuff happening there. Just a vagary of the cosmic play, they call it.
Okay, let's talk about the beings involved. The source introduces a few key extraterrestrial groups.
Right. You've got the modern Pleiadians and vegans. They're presented as descendants of peaceful factions from Lyra and Vega.
And the Lyrans themselves.
Described as really ancient, highly evolved, but with a difficult past.
Warlike. Destroyed themselves multiple times.
That's the claim. Lost their tech, had to rebuild. And this history, the source says, is why they feel responsible for Earth now, especially concerning our nuclear path.
They even supposedly settled a planet in our solar system once, the fifth planet.
Yeah, which was then destroyed in a nuclear war, according to these notes. So you can see the connection they're drawing. And they're apparently helped now by Pleiadians, vegans, others.
What about other groups? Signians.
Described as a human race, but very sensitive to radiation. Their society sounds different, like a gregarious instinct, led by the strongest.
And physical contact is tough.
Because of dangerous oscillation disturbances, yeah.
And then there's Semjase's injury. That sounds serious.
It's very. A severe brain injury from an attack affecting her steering central.
They implanted artificial plasma.
Yes, but the notes say these were foreign bodies and would ultimately destroy her brain tissue long term. A temporary, risky fix.
There was also an attack aimed at Meier.
Right. Semjase apparently calculated he shouldn't have survived it, a delusional attack. How he did was a mystery to her initially.
And this gets linked back to someone in the human group, Mr. G.
Yeah, the notes suggest Mr. G's subconscious defense reaction, maybe fearing his own claimed contacts weren't real, somehow triggered forces that ended up targeting Meier. It's complex.
Very. And the Giza intelligences and Pegasus refugees?
Okay, so the claim is Earth scientists are developing tech similar to what these Pegasus refugees used.
But on a different basis.
Right. Pegasus tech supposedly used thought oscillation for power. The Giza group couldn't do that, relied on them.
And the Giza were hostile.
They used a reflector, the notes say, to aim evil-minded oscillations at Meier. These got through his spiritual blockade when it weakened.
And the danger from them stopped when Pa took the Pegasus refugees away.
That's what the source indicates, yeah. Ta being another key contract figure.
Semjase also had a strange encounter herself.
She did. Tried to approach someone, ran into this huge power field she couldn't analyze, surrounded a violet aura, described as extremely rare, this kind of energy form.
And briefly, the dwarfs.
Yeah, mentioned as a human life form, good at house care, appearing and disappearing due to a high vibration rate. Hard to see.
Okay, shifting gears to the mission itself. The stated purpose, the human group involved, and, well, the problems they had.
A lot of problems, it seems. The core mission, according to the source, advising, education, spreading true knowledge and truth.
That only connected to the group's center.
Right. And primarily for that Swiss group's own understanding, as we said earlier.
But the notes spent a lot of time on the group's internal issues.
They really do. Mr. G comes up again and again.
Estranging himself from the mission, focusing on money, living in an illusion of contact.
Exactly. After supposedly losing the real connection. And his subconscious issues are linked to that attack on Meier.
His condition worsening, needing to change his diet, more fruits and vegetables.
That's the specific advice mentioned, yeah. Or he might leave the group and kind of destroy his own path.
Then there's member H, criticized pretty heavily.
Oh, yeah. Dangerous seances against advice, being tricked into giving up secrets.
Harmful to everyone involved.
Consciously letting a medium take data from her subconscious. Portrayed as a major threat, the most unreasonable and destructive member, and influenced by Mr. G.
And outsiders causing trouble. Spies, agitators.
The notes describe them in really harsh terms, people actively trying to stop the contacts in the mission.
Leading to internal conflict, unreasonability.
Arguments, sham concerns, people not controlling emotions despite supposedly having this higher knowledge.
Semjas found Earth human emotions inexplicable.
Yeah, she expresses regret about the group's behavior, finds it baffling.
People trying to change the advice given for their own benefit.
Even knowing it was wrong, the notes claim. There's a specific example about missing film.
With H denying it, but Semjasi confirming she was the failer.
Exactly. Little dramas amidst these huge claims.
The notes also lay out rules for the group's living situation.
The housing community. No commanded orders, everyone equal, bound by creational laws, from texts like Genesis, the Decalogue.
And the meditation room had strict rules.
Very specific. Scheduled times, only certain members, except for Meier, due to his blockade.
Danger from radiations otherwise.
Penetrating radiations, yeah. And something about managing stored fluidism, needing exact timing and quantities. Very precise, technical-sounding details within the spiritual context.
High expectations for personal evolution, too.
Definitely. Required intensive personal effort, not just time. Some apparently thought it just happened over 7 years without hard work, and they left.
Neglecting lessons was seen as menacing the mission.
Yeah, they'd eventually exclude themselves, harm their future for potentially many lifetimes. And if someone left for more than 8 months, they weren't supposed to be allowed back.
There's a strong critique of typical Earth thinking patterns.
Throughout the notes, called short-looking, self-pitying, self-favoritist, always feeling injured.
Group members needed to overcome this, control emotions, use deep thought.
Right. Separate emotions from spirit lessons, really deliberate on the advice.
And the ET perspective on all this human behavior.
One of, well, surprise and difficulty. They couldn't understand why humans are so subject to emotion, struggle with reason, especially with the knowledge they'd been given.
Ta and Semjasi were grieved, shocked by Meier's actions at one point.
Apparently so. Never expected it. Led them to study human behavior more closely. It's a recurring theme, the gap in understanding.
Let's turn to Meier's personal path, as described. Central role, but heavily burdened.
Very much so. Carrying this weight for 40 years, the notes say, wanting not to trouble others with it.
And specific advice given to him.
Yeah. Semjasi told him to be careful talking about his lifespan, reminded him he has rights, needs love, shouldn't be overly lonely.
The mission demands a lot, but things could change with cooperation.
Right. He needed to think more for himself, try to match Earth standards more, though that was hard for him. Not following this advice could question the whole mission.
The source also mentions his unique abilities.
Sending his spiritual consciousness wandering, confirmed by someone called Isidus.
Rapid calculations, even huge numbers, praised by Semjasi.
Yep, and extraordinary cognitions in fields like psychology. His ideas linking depression, aggression to body chemistry like adrenaline were noted as insightful.
What about the ET's view of his own actions? It sounds complex.
It is. Semjasi found his thinking quite crazily sometimes.
And it always worked out well, led to good results.
Apparently so. Responsible success. Quetzal found it hard, watching him struggle, wanted him to use spiritual power for himself.
But Meier refused, called it violence.
The most wicked form of violence, yeah. Quetzal acknowledged Meier's sincere love, like for his cannibal, whoever that was, gave him great patience, even if Meier didn't think it was a big deal.
And this regeneration thing, Semjasi taking him onto the ship.
Yeah, for a minute at a time, to regenerate his nerves, other issues, said it was necessary for him to keep working.
And this was needed because his blockade broke down. From weakness, burdens.
Right, which allowed those negative Giza oscillations to get through. So the regeneration was presented as a necessary intervention.
His workload sounds huge, too.
Immense. Struggling with time for lessons, spreading the info, writing, taking on other work,
Needed to make up time for the mission, his own evolution, and rest.
and advising people. Just stretched incredibly thin, according to the notes.
Okay, nearing the end of the notes here, they discuss limitations, the future, the nature of the knowledge. What limits did the ETs face?
Well, they state they couldn't directly interfere with human evolution. Self-determination principle,
Though Semjase found it hard to leave because of connection.
apparently. And their ability to protect was limited. Meier had to rely on his own protection for things like a trip to America for filming.
Where they foresaw unpleasant things happening.
Potentially, yeah.
And there was a big shift in contact described.
Yes, because of increased army surveillance and the group's internal unreasonability.
Direct contacts were being limited, possibly stopped altogether.
Maybe till year's end, maybe permanently. That was the situation described.
So the plan B was?
Telepathic contact. They'd transmit notices, explanations, and Meier had to write it all down, meaning he needed his typewriter handy.
Why the shift? What prompted this?
A view into the future, the notes claim. A terrifyingly clear view that showed results, leaving them no other choice.
There's also that detail about San Francisco, a prophecy or inspiration.
Yeah, Meier's pictures or descriptions from a future trip matched a sci-fi artist's painting.
And Quetzal confirmed the future view was accurate, suggested Meier was placed for it.
That's the claim. Like, they sometimes provide inspiration.
Was the door completely closed on direct contacts resuming?
Not entirely, but the conditions were really tough. Required all group members to genuinely work on their ascending evolution.
No more sham truths, evasions, overcome Earth thinking, control emotions.
Seriously, study and apply the lessons. The notes are very clear. The time for indulgence has passed.
And if the mission stopped, what was the consequence?
Stark. All their stored information, knowledge, data, it seems, would be eliminated.
They felt coerced into that possibility by the group's behavior.
Yes, by the unreasonability. It's presented as a very serious potential outcome forced upon them.
Lastly, the source touches on the fragility of transmitting this knowledge.
Right, highlighting issues with the English translation by this Mrs. Ellen Jacoby.
Accused of introducing distortions, her own philosophies, misleading Colonel Stevens.
Yeah. It underscores how easily complex information can get corrupted, intentionally or not, as it passes through hands and languages. A cautionary note within the material itself.
And a quick clarification on terms, incarnation versus reincarnation.
Just states they mean the same thing in this context. Incarnation is just shorthand used in the notes.
Wow. Okay. So we really journeyed through this incredible stack of sources you provided, unpacked these really intricate contact notes attributed to Billy Meier.
It's definitely a dense picture. You've got alleged physical encounters, bizarre technology, cosmic history.
And then all the complicated dynamics of this human group tasked with this, well, enormous mission.
Plus these deep, often challenging spiritual and philosophical concepts woven throughout.
Yeah, the material presents it all as these extraordinary claims, but filled with very human struggles, group conflict, urgent warnings about our behavior, our future.
It really makes you ask profound questions, doesn't it? About belief, about responsibility if you claim to have such knowledge.
The inherent difficulties in any group trying to achieve something big, especially something like this.
Absolutely. So after this deep dive into such, unique source material, it makes you consider if some kind of extraordinary knowledge were shared.
What purely human challenges, like the ones described here, the emotions, the conflicts, the misunderstandings, might actually be the biggest barrier to it ever being truly accepted or succeeding.